We gather today to honor the brave men and women who served during one of the most difficult chapters in our nation. They answered the call with courage, served with honor, and carried the weight of their service long after they came home. Here in Quincy, patriotism is not just something we remember, it is something woven into who we are. This is the City of Presidents, the home of John Adams and John Quincy Adams, leaders who helped shape the foundation of our nation and define the meaning of service and sacrifice. Quincy has long stood as a community that answers the call, whether in the earliest days of our republic, through generations of military service, or during times of conflict like Vietnam. The men and women from the city who served in Vietnam carried forward the tradition of duty, courage, and love of country. For many Vietnam veterans, the recognition they deserved was not given when they returned home. Today, we gather to ensure that their service is fully honored, their sacrifices are remembered, and their legacy is respected. To all of our Vietnam veterans here in Quincy and across the nation, thank you and welcome home. Your service reflects the very best of this city and this country. We honor you today and will never forget. I'd like to now bring up Reverend Jack Swanson for the invocation.
Thank you, Christine. These things are dangerous. This morning I just typed in the phone, who were the 3 Marines who were abandoned by their country in 1975? And this popped up, and I encourage you just to type that in. Lance Corporal Joseph Hargrove, Private First Class Gary Hall, Private Danny Marshall. 15 days after the fall of Saigon, which, by the way, today is the 51st anniversary, these Marines were abandoned by their country and were left to die on an island off Cambodia in the seizure of the Marquez. Let's remember, it's not a cliche that freedom's not free. It's paid for oftentimes with the lives of patriots. Let's remember that today. Vietnam veteran was shunned when they came home, but there were 3 Vietnam veterans that didn't get home and were shot after the fall of Saigon. Let us remember them today, and let us give thanks for those who answer the call to the flag. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, bless these proceedings today. Lord Jesus, no one is nameless to Thee. We cast our cares upon Thee. We ask You bless our nation. We thank You for our wonderful city of Quincy that does not forget. And we thank You, Lord God, especially for these names on this wall behind me. We thank You for our country. Bless, O Lord God, these proceedings, respecting all faiths. I pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand, if you can. And I'd like to ask Mike Norton to please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be careful going back, Michael. Now I'd like to ask Officer Don Sauter to please come up and lead us in the national anthem.
Honor God. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now I'd like to ask Mr. Tom Belinda to please join me at the podium.
There's a nice crowd. I see all you here every year. This is the 39th consecutive Vietnam Veterans Day in Quincy. Hard to believe. Dick Churchill and I walked down there with General Westmoreland 39 years ago. We switched this to April a few years ago, so it'd be nice and sunny and warm here, but that's not working out.
It's a good one.
Thank you. We just lost a good friend of ours, Marine Millie Cox, who was 102 years old. So could we have a moment of silence for her, please? Thank you. Millie's calling hours are at the Sweeney Brothers Funeral Home following this at 4 p.m. today. If you can make it down, that would be great. Okay. Now it is my great honor to introduce the mayor of the City of Quincy. Tom Koch has been our biggest supporter. I know I've been here all 39 years, and some mayors didn't even know we existed. But Tommy has anything we needed. He's been there to provide it for us. He is, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the reasons that Quincy is still the most patriotic city in the world. Tom Koch.
Please be seated. Thank you, Lieutenant Belinda. Outstanding work you've done over the years. Of course, we still miss Larry. We think about Larry, not just today, but any veterans event that we go to, Larry Norton comes to mind because he was so involved, so immersed in all the veterans issues. I don't have the memories because I'm too young of some of the controversy, but certainly read it over the years of what went on during the Vietnam and the marches and the protests and the disrespect to you guys when you came home. I do have a couple of memories. One of them is I was just a kid when Dick Stratton came home, and he was the Grand Marshal and the guest speaker at the Flag Day ceremonies. I think it was 1975 or 76. And there were 2,000 or 3,000 kids in the stands, and you could hear a pin drop. He was a remarkable patriot and American. I got the good fortune of spending some time with him in his later years, and learned a lot from him. He was brilliant. He was a patriot. I remember when Henry Fonda died, he said the wrong Fonda died. He was pretty straightforward how he felt, and he earned that, as we would all agree. Just another personal note, I know that my dad started the Flag Day Parade 75 years ago this year, and part of the reason the Flag Day Parade was really to instill patriotism in our young people, and boy, we need it more today than ever across our country. But he was approached by some people to say, you know, at Flag Day Parade, you really shouldn't go on with what's going on in Vietnam. And he said, like hell. He said, that Flag Day parade will go on as long as I'm around, particularly in honor of Stratton and Bredno, who were both prisoners at the time. Quincy is a great city, not because I'm the mayor. I'm blessed to be the mayor of this great city, and we have a great team. And I've always been so impressed with how our generation after generation have responded to our nation in need. This city has done it far greater in many ways per capita than many other communities across the state and the nation. And we all should be so proud of that. And I know that we've got a number of Quincy kids serving today, including Captain Hill in the Navy, a North Quincy grad 97, and they're doing their duty. So let us be mindful of their service, and when you hit the knees tonight or hit the pillow, if you can't do the knees, keep them in your prayers that they may be home swiftly and safely as they do their service to our country. So thank you to all of our veterans. Thank you for your service. It sounds so shallow. It's the best we can do on behalf of the City of Quincy and all the residents. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And these names inscribed in the back of this wall, we thank the O'Connell family for doing this. When they built Marina Bay, this wasn't something publicly funded. They did this, one of the first in the country, to honor these gents. So we're grateful to the O'Connell family. And as long as these names are inscribed here, they'll never be forgotten. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like all veterans to please raise your hand here. I know there's a few. Thank you all. It's really good to see you guys from the War on Terror, you vets. I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you're all okay. And make sure you say a prayer tonight for the kids that are on the front line now, because there are plenty of them out there. My brother Vietnam vets have been here for 39 years, and most of you look it.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, okay, Joe.
You really built us up.
And I'd like to, if I could, introduce the Gold Star family members. Could I ask them to come down to the front a little bit? I know. Come on, Patty. Let's go. Puglisi's. Granahans, are you here too, Mike? Where's the boys? Let's get the boys over here. All right, come on. Here comes the Granahans. Come on, Bob.
Just had my knee replaced, Tommy.
All right.
I know you should have.
This is Patty Smith. She is the sister of Peter Gary. I got it right? Yeah. Peter, her father was a survivor of the Bataan Death March. Peter was killed, and he was a prisoner of war also. Peter was killed July 28th, 1969. He was 18. Bob Puglisi, right here. His brother David was in a lot of combat, and in March of 1969 he was wounded, and he ended up in a wheelchair for the next 20 years. He died in 1987, and his name is on the top left there, your top right. And we're so happy that we were able to do that. Your parents were the best. They really were the best. And Lieutenant Mike Granahan, Quincy Fire Department, retired, an Army Vietnam veteran. I always thought he was a Marine, that's why I talked to him. His son was. And his brother, Lance Corporal John Granahan, was killed. He's a radio man with 2-9 and 3rd Marine Division. He was killed in 1967. He was 19 years old. And I can't thank these families. They've been here all the time. We have no more Gold Star mothers, which is very sad, but we still have these family members here. I forgot to introduce, we got Brad.
Almost.
Jim.
Jim, and Andrew. Andrew was a EOD, EOD with the combat engineers tours in Iraq. So thank you guys for being here to support your mom. So appreciate it. Okay, we'll be doing the wreath a little later. Okay. All right. Good work. All right. Don't fall down, Mike. Come on. Now it is my great honor to introduce our guest speaker. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, retired. Can't believe he's a little nervous about talking to you people, but Jim was a pilot in A4 over North Vietnam, and he got shot down. He had to punch out. And when he landed, the welcome wagon was there for him. He did engage them. He had a sidearm. He did engage them. Was able to shoot one of them, but and they didn't take too kindly to him. They marched him a couple 100 miles through the jungle, and he ended up in a cage, chained. Next to my good friend George Warner. And George couldn't be here today because he had another double amputation of his toes, which seems to be an ongoing thing. But I'm sure Jim will mention him in his remarks. So, Jim, if you come forward, Lieutenant Jim Walsh, United States Marine Corps, Lieutenant Colonel. Sit down for a minute.
Thank you very much. When Tom called me, I asked him, what should I say? Where should I be? He goes, say anything you want. I said, well, how long should it be? He goes, well, I don't care, anything you want. So I had a long one. Then I had the one that I think people are going to like right here. But I'm just honored and privileged to be here today because I was here about 9 years ago when this whole place wasn't this developed. And I really did not get how serious and how much Quincy values their service people. I mean, so it's just absolutely, I mean, I'm here almost tearing up. And I'm sorry about all this stuff, but the doctor said if you don't come on Wednesday, we can't get you in for another month, so I did that. Anyway, I thought I would just give you a few thoughts on some things and some stories. Keep this thing up here. I graduated right up the road, Boston College, in 1968. Born and brought up in Connecticut. And so I'm a New England guy, I'm a Connecticut guy, and Boston College before Flutie, so it wasn't big, it wasn't a great big deal up there or anything, but it was nice. 4 years later, I'm in Vietnam, flying Marine Corps jets. Little did I know when I was strapping into my A4 for my 100th mission on September 26, 1972, that not only would I miss the outstanding band at the Oak Club that night, but I would not log my 100th landing that day. So I was flying a combat mission over Quan Loy Airfield, which was very close to where now my good friend George Wannet was caught about 6 months earlier than that. He was overrun. I'm sure a lot of people here know his story. Absolute hero. He escaped and evaded for 30 days in the country, in the jungle, before the bad guys finally caught him and stuff. When they finally caught him, there wasn't much left of him. And he's just a hell of a man, a hero. He was awarded the Army Cross for heroism and he earned every bit of it. But it took a while for me to get from flying this hop to seeing George and meeting him in the camp. So as I was flying that hop, it was my second one of the day, and I was doing a bombing run. As I pulled off, anti-aircraft fire hit the plane. It was pretty solid, and there was flames coming out the front, smoke in the cockpit. And I went to just key the mic and tell my wingman, I got hit. Nothing. And so the plane was getting really kind of iffy to fly. And I was trying to get it down the road a little bit, because when you're bombing people, they're really in a bad mood. So you might want to put some distance between you and them. So I'm trying to get it out there. And the next thing I know, the plane pitches over. It's going straight down. And at about 3,000 feet, over 400 knots, 440 miles an hour, I decided it was time to get out of there. So I punched out. I'd never done that before. So it was a huge, loud noise, followed just by silence. And the first thing I thought was, I'm blind. Because what happened was I was going so fast, and the air is kind of thick down there. It took the side of my helmet, ripped it out, and rotated it around, and we don't have a little hole like football helmet. So I thought I was blinded, just turned it around in front of me, so I'm blind. But I got that turned back, so I got myself a little bit under control, because at that time, the G-suit I was wearing was wrapped up around my neck, and I looked at the parachute, and I could see sky, which is not a good thing when you have a parachute. But it's just a couple of panels, and I looked down, and there's this big green forest, and it was a rubber tree plantation. And I would later find out there was 3,000 bad guys, North Vietnamese troops in there. Of course, nobody on our side knew that. But anyhow, I found out, because as I came down, right in the middle of this big green thing, an easy landing, because when you're in a rubber tree plantation, they don't have any leaves or any branches up to about 6 feet, because that's how they get the rubber out of the tree. So I came down, and it's kind of rustle, and I got my parachute out. Oh, I'm okay, that's pretty good. And I looked probably from me to the tree right over there, and there's about several guys wearing the PIF helmets, and I'm thinking, you know what? If those are good guys, they can call my guys and get me out of here. I might still make the party. Not to be, because these guys did the biggest double take I've ever seen in my life. They're eating their chow, it's late in the afternoon, and they look up, and then they look up again, and next thing, rice pans are going up in the air, and I can see this to this day. Rice out of the pan, chopsticks going slowly like this. And then they jumped up and said something in Vietnamese, which was, get your guns, shoot that Yankee or pirate. So the minute they started shooting, I started running. And as I'm running, I'm trying to run down, because I don't want to go straight up the rows, because they could get a bead on me. So I'm going diagonally, and I pull my trusty .38 caliber service weapon, 5 rounds of tracer, and I fire my first shot in anger out of that. Running right by my ear, bam, loudest noise I ever heard in my life. When you shoot the gun that far from you, it's loud. So I'm running. I can't get any bad. Worse, can it? It got worse. Guys start screaming. These guys are shooting, and more people are coming out from different directions, shooting. A lot of them, a lot of bullets flying, and I can hear all the snapping and all that stuff. And so I'm running. I run down a ways. I'm holding onto this tree because I'm just out of breath, and this guy jumps out right in front of me, right about where that young guy is, and he's shooting a full automatic, and he's hitting the tree that I'm holding onto, and the pieces of the tree are going into me. But I shot him center mass, and I started running some more. I got down a ways, hanging onto another tree, and all of a sudden I hear thunk. Whew. RPG rocket propelled grenade goes right by my head and blows down a tree. It was really lucky that that happened. It did miss me, but a hush came over the crowd, which was good. So I said, I'm going to try to negotiate a surrender here. The only things I knew in Vietnamese were Bam Mui Ba, which is beer. That's not going to work. Chu Hoi, well, that might work, because it means I want to come over and fight for you guys. So I yelled Chu Hoi. Nobody's still shooting. And I hear this accent, throw out your gun. I threw the gun out. I threw my knife out. I threw anything with a point or an edge on it out. And then they all came up, swarmed me, started beating me up a little bit. Kind of expected that. But then their boss came and said, okay, had to take my flight suit off and my boots off. That morning, when I dressed, I put on my Madras skivvies and my T-shirt that had this Asian fellow with a conical hat looking up at a bomb coming down, and it said, "Kill Kong." When they saw that, they went nuts. I mean, they beat the crap out of me. And so they're thumping me, and luckily, in came the helicopters trying to get me. And our rescue guys were really, really brave and gutsy. They didn't know how many bad guys there were there. They would have done it anyway. But they tied me up, threw me in a hole, threw a cover over me, and then started fighting with the helicopters. And I could feel and hear the rounds coming out of their guns hitting the helicopters, and then the helicopter rounds coming in. Luckily, thunderstorm came, and the helicopters had to push off, and then the guys grabbed me out of the hole. I found out later that out of about, I think, 5 helicopters, only 2 of them made it all the way back home to their bases without setting down and patching up their holes, because they took some hits. And I talked to a couple fellows which it was kind of emotional, years later when I was at the airline, that had been on that mission. And they were upset that they couldn't get me out. And I was happy that they didn't get shot down. So anyhow, where am I? That's all right. I'll tell you the story. Anyhow, they marched me off. And the first thing is, we walked for about probably an hour. We went into this big, huge cave. And it was a hospital. And sharp knives, all over the place. So I'm thinking no good can come of this. So while we're in there, this one fellow comes out, and he's got his arm in a sling and he's bandaged. And he's got my pistol. And he goes, "You did this to me." And I said, yeah, probably. But then, as they always did over there, they take the pistol, they put it right to your nose. And he cocked it. And I'm thinking, I only had 5 rounds in there. I hope I used them all. And the 7th time he pulled the trigger, I started breathing again, because I did use them all. And anyhow, after that, we started a walk. And it took me about 3 weeks to go about 200 miles to the prison camp. We did, as everybody who's been in the military here knows, they took me to the wrong camp first. So we had to adjust from that. That put another 3 or 4 days on the travel. But they brought me in and wound up in this camp with about 6 cages And when we walked in, it was pouring rain at night. We had some more adventures along the trail, but that would be this real thick one. Anyway, we got there, and the guys that were escorting me, they were North Vietnamese soldiers. They were really good, and they were fair with me. And even though I tried to escape one time, well, they tied things tighter and hit me a little bit more at night if I rolled over. But anyhow, they were square. So they dropped me off in this place, threw me in this cage. This guy puts a chain around my ankle, puts a chain around the cage, and goes off. And it's pouring, it's ugly, I'm tired. I put this hammock up and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to be talking to management in the morning because this really sucks. Things leaking, the roof's leaking, everything's horrible. So the next morning, first thing I hear is this rooster, like no rooster could ever sound. I thought, once again now your mind goes to how deep the poo-poo is that you're in. I'm going, that's got to be somebody who's crazy and he thinks he wants to be a rooster in the morning. But then I hear jingle of keys, and I look over on the other side, and this fellow bends down and he opens this door on this cage, and this arm reaches out to push the door open, and it's so white it's almost greenish, and this guy pops out in black pajamas. And I'm going, that is just like the movies. And so this guy opens another couple cages and he comes to mine. He opens the cage door, and I said, hey, you forgot this thing on my foot here. He goes, no need. For about the next 6 months, there was no need to be good to Jim Walsh. And when I got out, I looked over, I could see George Wannett, who's I learned his name later, and several other guys, and one of the fellows looks at me, and we couldn't talk or yell, so he goes, are you a Marine? And I went, yeah. He goes, good, we need a Marine here. And then he goes, you will look like me in 3 months. Well, he was wrong. I looked like him in 2 months. And we wound up living very austere. Everybody had malaria. Everybody had beriberi. Everybody had dysentery. Everybody was homesick. I mean, that's the way it was. And I could go on and on about that, but we finally were released on, I think it was, I want to say January 22nd, when Henry Kissinger finally got the beautiful Madam Bin from North Vietnam to agree to a peace agreement. And the war, as far as we were concerned with it, was over. We were going to go home, we hoped, because we're still in a cage up in Cambodia someplace. We got a little news every now and then when this fellow that spoke a little English and spooned food in our dishes twice a day, not very much of it, that we called them DRO. So probably the Navy guys would know this. Dining room orderly is what he was. So anyhow, he would bring this transistor radio out, and every now and then he goes, and now you will hear some news. And it would be Hanoi Hannah telling us how great everything was going in the north. But we could get a picture on where the war was going. And so we knew we were going to be going home. And that, to us, was the best thing. And so I'll switch back to the United States now. On that night, because I'll go back, everybody in our camp was MIA. And there was a lot of MIAs out, and there was a lot of people that didn't know whether their loved one was a prisoner or was not. And so that night, all over the United States, phone calls were going out to Mrs. So-and-so, wife of Captain So-and-so, United States Air Force, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, parents of so-and-so, United States Navy, in Winsted, Connecticut, at the house, the Walsh family, at 10:30 at night, Captain Ed Easton, who was the same fellow that made the casualty call to my parents and told them I was shot down, showed up in his dress blues with his first sergeant with 2 bottles of champagne, knocked on the door and said, "You guys got any glasses?" And the party started, and it was a good party from what I hear. And so that brings me back to small town America, town living in America where people care about everything in the service and the things that mean something to the country. And like this event right here is absolutely off the page. And I don't know how much more I could say about that, except my town in Winsted, Connecticut was a lot like that, because when I got out of the hospital and was driving back from New York into Winsted, Winsted has a main street about 1.5 miles long. Every single storefront had a welcome home gym sign in it. And it was done by all the WW2 guys. I mean, I get a little bit choked up with that. But I just want to leave you with this. I'm going to read it because I've tried to memorize it for a couple of years, really, and I screw it up. So I'm just going to say this. A veteran is someone who at one point in his or her life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America with no restrictions. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me here. I sure appreciate it.
Wow, thank you, Jim. Next time you think you're having a bad day, think about Jim Walsh and all those guys. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. It meant a lot. Now I'd like to ask the families to come forward so we can present the wreath, please. Eddie? Bob Puglisi. Thank you. Mike, I guess you can't come because you're kind of hobbled there. We'll have these families. We gotta put it aside so we can read the names too. Yep. All right, there, a little bit to the side there, so we can read the names. Thank you. I ask the Curry brothers, Dan and Bob, to come forward. Both Vietnam vets from Quincy, both wounded in action. All right, Bob bowed out. We got Daly here, all right, outstanding. Puglisi's were named the greatest American family by Paul Daly. So I'd ask you to read the names at this time. Details, Tench Hood.
E. Allen Brudno, George R. Levesque, James H. Kavicki Jr., David A. Pitts, Lawrence E. Siros, Peter J. Jerry, James M. Barry, Martin R. Keith, James J. Jenks Jr., Richard S. Davis Jr., James M. Walsh, David O. Sullivan, Ralph J. Willard, Peter J. Landry, Brian P. Ahern, James C. Daigle, Basil L. Serralo, John H. Morgan, Leo F. Grady, Richard J. Vasconcelos, Lawrence A. Grenham, Raymond J. West, James E. Casale, Richard R. Peterson, and Walter Fabian Jr.
David J. Puglisi, Thomas Chiminello, Robert J. Fay, James A. Stark, James F. Murray, Gary J. Webb, Paul Vincent Grasso, Ralph W. Caspol, Charles L. Bifolchi, Alfred V. Schofield, David F. Mager, Richard C. Archer, George F. Fell Jr., Francois J. Bouillat, Richard D. Walsh, Richard D. Slack Jr., James P. Hickey, Joseph M. Pinato, John P. Coughlin, Warren C. Diamond, George W. Underwood, George A. Nash, Christopher C. Donahue, John W. Granahan, Robert P. Phillips, MIA.
Waffle floor, please. Sound taps. Details. Please enter pump.
Order. 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 Order.
Pastor Jack, could you come and offer the benediction, please?
It's been a lot of years there, Tommy. Not as many as you, though. As Jacob said to Laban, may the Lord watch over thee and me as we are apart one from another. See you next year. God bless you all.
Before we go, I got just a few announcements. Dan Curry is sponsoring a golf tournament for Tunnels to Towers in July, and if you'd like to see him about that, that would be great. And Dick Murphy is sponsoring one in June for the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. I have the information on that if you're interested. And let's see, you wanna speak again? Okay. And that is that. Oh, this coming Saturday in Holbrook, I have the information on Paul Surratt, who was killed in Vietnam. They're finally honoring him in the town of Holbrook. So if anybody is available Saturday, see me for the information. And I'll turn this back over to Christine. Thank you.
I want to again say thank you to everyone that came out today, and how very important it is that we continue to remember and honor our service members. And it shows today that you feel the same way. I'd also like to recognize our elected officials that are here with us today. Senator John Keenan, Representative Bruce Ayers, Councilor Deb Riley, Councilor at Large Noel DeBona, Councilor Walter Hubley, Clerk of Courts Walter Timilty, Chief of Quincy Police Mark Kennedy, and if I left anyone else out, I apologize, but if you raise your hand, I might be able to see you and recognize you. But again, thank you all so very much for coming out today. Thank the Lord for no rain, and it came before. Thank God for that. And if you'd like, we're having a get-together at the Port 305, so please join us if you'd like.
One more quick thing. I want to thank Sergeant DiLorenzo and the North Quincy Junior ROTC. Sergeant DiLorenzo's been here for 25 years. And the Quincy Police Honor Guard and the motorcycle unit, thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. God bless. That concludes our ceremony.